Hey everybody, how's it going? Stop me coming right back at you, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some Kino Lorber pickups I recently got in another sale of theirs. I mentioned, I think in some of my other videos that I did recently, that I had made yet another purchase from Kino Lorber because it seems like they just can't stop doing sales, and each sale, oddly enough, is a little bit different and has some new things in it that weren't in the previous sale. So it's like, you got to take advantage of it when you can, because they're pretty good deals on things that are usually $20 or more, going down to like $10. It's a pretty good deal. It's kind of like the Criterion sales, where titles that are usually $30 or more are going down to $20. So it's like, you really got to take advantage of these really good deals on a specialty label product. So that's exactly what I did, and most of these are, honestly, all of them are classics, but most of them are like really old classics that I'm just now picking up. I've seen 2 of these, and the other 2 I have not. I picked them up because I've really wanted them in my collection for quite a while. They've been on my wish list for quite a while, but they've also been really expensive, like over $20 for quite a while. And so as a result, I've just been holding off on them and holding off on them and holding off on them until I just finally said, you know what, screw it. This is the best price I've seen on any of these ever. I'm going to get it now because there's probably never going to be a better price on this, so let's just go for it. The first one I got, however, was just the next in line for this particular trilogy of films that Kino Lorber recently picked up the rights to produce, and that would be A Fistful of Dollars. If you know what the original artwork looks like, the original artwork I'll show you here. As you can see, it's pretty cool. I mean, you gotta look a little bit closely there, but I do like that red kind of extreme artwork there for the movie. No real problem with that, but when I found out there was a reversible cover and the artwork for the reversible cover was this, I was just like, the artwork it came with, the red artwork, is really great, but this is just fan-freaking-tastic. And I gotta be honest with you, I like this one probably second best. My personal favorite now is for a few dollars more, and the reason for that is just I feel like the story in that movie is so much better, and the music is fantastic. I feel like they had everything completely on point for that movie, and it just all worked and flowed so incredibly well. A lot of people look at The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and they say, well, that's the best of the trilogy, obviously. And I think to myself, it's good, but I don't know if I could even really say it's the best, you know what I mean? Personally, my favorite, of course, is For a Few Dollars More. But you gotta have A Fistful of Dollars, and yes, for those who are wondering, I do have the MGM, I believe it was MGM release of the Man with No Name trilogy. I have the whole trilogy. I have the newer release of that trilogy that has the newer transfer of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But, as has been established, believe it or not, even though the newer transfer from MGM is pretty good, there's a reason that I went ahead, I think it was like a year ago, and picked up the Kino Lorber release of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Because, well, not only was it a really good price, but it was also a much better transfer. They just did a much better job with it. And this one, this is the first brand new transfer that has been given to A Fistful of Dollars, and I believe they are also going to be releasing For a Few Dollars More at some point later this year. So this one was, I think, $14 on sale, something like that. it wasn't like the best sale ever on Kino Lorber. This was not one of those things that I got because it was just a tremendous price for a brand new product or anything. If it's a brand new thing like this, and it's a popular movie, there's no way in hell they're going to give you like $10 or $8 or something like that. It's just not going to happen. But $14, I think, is better than what the asking price is going for right now. So I was like, yeah, I might as well get it right freaking now. And oh my goodness, am I glad I did, because look at that artwork. That is fan-freaking-tastic. So glad to have picked this up. Tons of special features. I'm not even going to go through all of them. There's just a lot, okay? But yeah, one of the best spaghetti westerns of all time, inarguably. And of course, it's part of the Man with No Name trilogy, so if you got one, you gotta get all three. And now I have two, but the third one from Kino has not yet been released. When it is released, I will definitely pick that up as well, because of course it's my favorite, and for a few dollars more it actually has become my favorite, which is funny because that was the one that I waited the longest to see. Like, I always watched the first and the third one. I've seen this one like 4 or 5 times, right? But I've also seen the Good, the Bad. I had also seen the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly a few times as well, and I liked both of those. I felt like at the time that I liked the Fistful of Dollars more. I actually did not like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly that much. I thought it was pretty good, but I was not a huge fan of it, and kind of still don't understand why it's the most popular of the three, but whatever. What I will say is that for a few dollars more grew on me. It had to grow on me before I really appreciated it for what it was. And until I let it grow on me, I always felt like this movie was the best of the trilogy, the very first one. And there are reasons for that, because it sets up a lot of things that you then end up seeing in a lot of other spaghetti westerns, specifically and obviously Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns. But it's also just a great movie in its own right. That being said, after like I recently got interested in watching some spaghetti westerns, I was like, well, I don't want to watch all three. And the one I haven't seen the most of is For a Few Dollars More, so I watched it again because the music of that one in particular was going through my head just nonstop. It just got stuck in my head. So I wanted to go back and watch it, and sure enough, I just fell in love and feel like that one is absolutely my favorite of the three now. So yeah, I can't wait to get that one from Kino, because I have no doubt they're going to do a fantastic job with that release, the same way they did with this one. Now, the next three that I'm going to talk about, yes, there are only three more, but the next three I'm going to talk about are all movies that came out, I believe, in the 1920s. So it's a huge step from like 1968 to 1920 something. That said, I have talked about this one in particular before, and I mentioned that I wanted to get this on Blu-ray at some point in the best possible quality, because the only way I had seen it was through public domain. And when I saw it through public domain, I was just like, holy crap, this is awesome. So I went ahead and finally picked up, and it was kind of spendy, but finally picked up Lon Chaney's The Phantom of the Opera, The Phantom of the Opera, starring Lon Chaney. This is the original release of the story, at least one of the original releases. It's the first one brought up by Universal, to be specific, and the second one came out in like the 1940s, and that's the one you always see in the Universal Classic Monster line, and that's the one in the Universal Classic Monster set that I have, which has all the main movies. Obviously, I think they are also releasing like a massive set now with all the movies and like the main movies and the spin-offs and all that stuff. At least I heard something to that effect, but whatever the case may be, this is the first of the Phantom of the Opera movies that Universal produced. The latter one being the one produced in the 40s that you see on all the Universal Classic monster sets. But that one, quite frankly, I saw that one too. Not as much of a fan of it as I was of this. That one I don't feel like goes far enough. It's not as deep. It's not as disturbing in some ways. And like the effects in it even aren't really that good. There are a lot of great things about it, but the effects in that movie aren't necessarily as impressive as the effects in this movie. So, I mean, look at that makeup. Just take a real good look, alright? Lon Chaney as the Phantom is the Phantom. In my estimation, he is the best Phantom of the Opera. He did it better than anyone else. He still reigns supreme in that arena. And as a result, I had to get this because honestly, it's not even my favorite story, right? I like the story, but I don't think it's like the best story ever. And it's really not my favorite spooky, disturbing tale, you know what I mean? So if I'm going to watch the story again, I want it to be the best one there is. And this one, I feel like, in my opinion, is the best out there. What struck me about it the most when I watched it last time was that it was so relatable. I feel like modern audiences could watch this easily and not get lost and not get bored and actually kind of enjoy it, which is like something, there's something to be said about that for a movie that is almost 100 years old now. So that's pretty damn impressive. So the thing about this one, though, the reason I was never picking it up to begin with was because it was so damn expensive. This one was always over $20, like $25 to $30 typically. You go on Amazon right now, and I think it's like $25, $26 right now. Wow. This went on sale through Kino for $20, $19.99. So I was like, you know, it's not the best price, but I also did like some price checking, some camel, and determined that aside from a few people who randomly sold the Blu-ray for like $10 a few times, aside from that, brand new, this movie really has not gone for like less than $18 ever. This Blu-ray in particular. So $19.99 to get it brand spanking new from Kino themselves is a pretty damn good deal. And I'll happily take it, even though like I don't like paying that much for a Blu-ray, obviously, but whatever. I at the time could afford it, so I did it because it was not that big of a deal to me to do so right at that moment. And I'm glad to have it because, you know, this is, like I said, it's my favorite version of Phantom of the Opera. I think it is the best version on film to date. That's my opinion. You can have your own opinion, but I mean, when you think of like one of those creepy movie monsters from the early days, I feel like that is a face that you're probably pretty familiar with. Am I wrong about that? That is like one of those really memorable faces. It's one of those really memorable makeup jobs from the early days, and there's a reason. And this is just a fantastic movie. If you have not seen this yet, you like I did, you can go and watch it through public domain for free, legally. It's not illegal. It's free. I paid $20 to get the Blu-ray because I wanted the best possible quality, and there are a bunch of special features on here. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you might, if you really like the movie, you might as well have the best version of it possible, right? So, it's exactly why I got this. Next up here, I got F.W. Murnau's Faust. And I got this primarily on the recommendation of a good friend of mine, so I'm going to go ahead and take a chance on it, obviously. I can't imagine that this wouldn't be an excellent, excellent film from the early days of film. But I also have to admit to have never actually having seen it. It's one of those things where it slipped through the cracks. I never actually got around to watching it. And this is another one I think you can probably watch certain versions of it through public domain for free, but I never got around to it. So, making up for that now by actually getting the Blu-ray here from Kino. This one went down to $15. Very, very good deal there, obviously. So I absolutely wanted to take advantage of that. Even though I've never seen it, I thought, well, it's worth taking a chance on this one because it's such a notable, important, popular film, and I have definitely been wanting to see it as of late. At least as of the past few years, I have had an interest in it, especially because of what my friend told me about it and saying it was such a good movie, you have to see it. So that's exactly what I did. And this one is, if I am correct, this one is like the restoration. It's the new remaster, or the newest remaster of the movie. So it's the best possible quality. It's the best possible image and whatnot that you will be able to get for this movie. And that's what I want to see. That's why I wanted to get this one in particular. And $15, not a bad price for a brand new, digitally remastered, like classic movie from the 20s. I mean, I can't really complain too much about it. Like, obviously, movies that old, you can get like a public domain print oftentimes for free on websites like archive.org, and you don't pay a penny for that. But if you're going to get the highest possible quality, and people are going to go through the effort, and it does take a lot of effort with some of these older movies. They're going to go to the effort of actually making it look as good as it possibly can for a high definition format like Blu-ray, then you got to be willing to pony up a bit of cash for that, because somebody went to a lot of effort to make that happen. Again, I understand. It's understandable. I fully am with you and with people who would see this and say, but still, you can get it for free. And it's like, yeah, I know. But just because you can get something for free doesn't mean that you shouldn't be willing to pay a decent amount for it, especially if it costs a lot of money to produce the item in question. You know what I mean? It may be that something like this or Phantom of the Opera is free through public domain, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy for somebody to make a better quality version of the film, a better quality print of the film, I should say. It doesn't mean that they don't have to go too much effort. There's no reason to believe that they wouldn't have to go to a lot of effort for that, especially if it's an older film, and if they're actually using the film itself, and the film itself is like at that stage getting so old and lacking in versatility and close to disintegrating in some cases. You know what I mean? Just very brittle, very frail. When they're working with film like that and they have to be so utterly careful with it, there's a reason why these older movies tend to be a little bit more expensive when they are brought to a high definition format. So I guess that's the point I'm trying to get across with this, is absolutely a movie like this is going to cost a little bit more. But I'm just glad that I only had to pay $15 for it, and I get the digitally remastered, restored, high definition version of the film from 35mm archival elements. Pretty damn good stuff. This one, I believe, came out in it says 1926 here, so yeah. Another one from the 1920s, almost 100 years old. I mean, this may in fact For all we know, we might not be able to get a better transfer than this, ever. So, might as well. $15. Pretty happy about that. I can't wait to finally see it. And then last but not least, if I'm going to get one F.W. Murnau movie that I haven't seen, I might as well get a classic from F.W. Murnau that everybody has, you've at least seen the character. You at least know about this movie. It's much like Lon Chaney as the Phantom of the Opera, even if you didn't recognize that makeup as Lon Chaney in Phantom of the Opera, you probably still recognize the makeup, right? Same goes here. You're going to recognize the makeup of Nosferatu. So there are two different releases of Nosferatu, maybe even 3 from Kino. But this is the one that you want. It's what I've been told. This is the best possible quality version of it, and that is because, again, it is the remastered edition. So that's what you got to look for, the remastered edition, remastered versions of these movies. Again, this one is in the public domain, and you can go and watch it for free. But, I mean, another thing I will point out about the whole free through public domain thing is that usually the movies that you can watch for free in the public domain, usually you're watching a print that is missing a few things. Usually you're watching a print that has, maybe even up to like 30 or 45 minutes from the original film just flat out missing. And that was the case with like Metropolis, where a lot of the versions of Metropolis that you'll find through public domain are like an hour and a half long, but the complete Metropolis from Kino is like a almost 2.5 hour long movie, because they found all these different prints. They found all these different versions of the movie that had like extra scenes in it that weren't in the versions that were even used for like the remaster or the remake, not the remaster, the remake that was done with music from Giorgio Moroder. You know that one? I think most people at least have probably seen that version around on the shelf at some point. That version is usually a little bit cheaper. One of the reasons it's cheaper is because it's like the hour and a half cut. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, and I haven't even actually seen that version, and I still want to, because Marauder is just fantastic, right? I mean, I'm sure it's a very interesting version of the film to see, particularly a very interesting musical score for the film. But the main point I would get across with that, or would attempt to want to get across with that, is just that we're talking about a movie that the complete version of it, thanks to people like Kino Lorber, after having been fully restored, had like 45 minutes or an hour or something crazy like that. I can't remember how many extra minutes was added onto the film, but there was a lot of extra content added onto the film that had previously been essentially lost to time until somebody found these copies of the old film in like a barn somewhere and brought it to light, and then they remastered it and put it on high definition, and it was like the first time anybody had ever actually seen this movie in such full context, right? Well, the same can go for things like this. I don't know if it's the same exactly for Nosferatu, but it's one of the reasons I like to get remastered versions of these old movies, is because sometimes they will add things in there, maybe not even as much as like the complete Metropolis has, but they will add in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of previously lost footage. So whenever you have the opportunity to get and are interested in getting a older movie like this from the 20s, a classic older movie, you got to recognize that older movies like this, almost 100 years old, most of the prints that have been seen and been distributed and been produced for physical or digital formats have been cut down significantly for a variety of different reasons, whether it be for network, for putting it on a TV or whatever, or literally just wanting to save time in terms of what a theater is showing so that they can get more showings in and make more money, you know what I mean? That's what people did. And because of that, a lot of stuff, a lot of detail from classic films was lost. So this is an opportunity to bring that detail to light. And more than that even, what was the Lodger from Alfred Hitchcock? I got the BFI Institute restoration of that, and it was like a night and day difference between what I had seen from the public domain print, which not only did it have more content, I feel like, than the public domain print, it also, like, the content that was there on both sides, it wasn't always easy to tell what was going on in the public domain print, but in this high definition restoration, you could tell everything. It was easy to see what was going on. You never got lost in the story. Like, the story was easy to keep attached to, so to speak. There weren't too many moments where it got really dark and muddy and the imagery was just almost impossible to detect and you didn't know what was going on and yada yada yada. Rather than that, you got like a high definition image where everything is visible. You can see everything that's going on, and so you never have moments where you're like, what's going on? You always know what's going on. So that's another thing. That's another reason that I feel like you gotta get these older movies on high definition. They're made for that. Or at least, like, the movies aren't made for that, but that's what high definition is made for. Even if it's not necessarily made for that stuff, right? What I'm trying to get across here is that, like, when you watch an older movie in higher definition, you give yourself an opportunity to see it in a brand new light. In a way that even if you were to see it in public domain, you wouldn't really necessarily be able to understand everything that was going on. But if you watch it in high definition from a new digital remastering of it, or digital restoration, you're probably going to be able to watch it fully through without missing anything. And that is something that I feel like is very valuable, that you're not going to get from the public domain print. So, yeah. Another reason to get these remasters, Nosferatu, I feel like I don't even have to say anything. It's just one of the classic vampire movies. And I got it and Phantom of the Opera so that I could watch them during the Halloween season later this year. So, very happy about that. This one was, again, another one that was $15. It's not as good of a deal as the $10 titles that they had. And they had a lot of the $10 titles this time around, too. But I specifically went looking for these because these, Nosferatu, Phantom of the Opera, and Faust even, are titles that I've had on my wish list for a long time because I intended eventually at some point to pick them up. It's just that they were too expensive for me at the time. Well, I had a little extra money and I was like, this is a sale that's going on Kino. I might as well pick these titles up. $15. Even if I were to get like a really good deal on Amazon, it would have been like $20. So I still saved a little bit of money there. It wasn't as much money as I might have saved on some of the other titles that I picked up from Kino in these sales. It wasn't like $10 marked down from $20, but if it's one of these kinds of things where it's, the deluxe remastered edition of Nosferatu, then you got to take what you can get. And what they're willing to give you there is $15 instead of $20. Okay, I'll do it. All right, you got me. You might not have gotten me at an earlier date when I didn't have a lot of money, but at least at the time that I made this purchase, I had enough money that it wasn't a concern, and I said, screw it. I'm getting these things. I want them. I actually had to fight with myself over it, too, because I just felt like, God, do I really want to spend this much money on these? And I was just like, you know what? If you don't do it now, you might never get a deal like this again, and you'll regret it forever, and and I'm just like, Fine, fine, I'll do it. So, yeah, I know I've gone on way too long about 4 freaking titles from Kino, but I guess I had some ranting to do as well, so whatever. I know people like my ranting just as much as they like me showing what I got. I mean, how much fun would it actually be? How interesting would these videos actually be if all I did was go, here, I got this, and this, and this, and this. That would take like 2 minutes of your time. There would be no context to anything, and it wouldn't be entertaining at all. I feel like part of the reason anybody comes to see my videos is not just because they want to see me hold up physical media. It's because they want me to tell a story about it. They want me to explain some of the reasons that I decided to buy these things, some of the attachments that I might have to them or might not have to them, whatever the case is. So, yeah, I do apologize to anybody who thinks I'm way too long-winded, but I don't know. I feel like the majority of my audience appreciates it, so anyways, that will do it for me today. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you later. Peace.